So, hi everyone. Today I'm going to paint a landscape painting. I don't think you've ever seen me paint a landscape painting before because I don't often paint them, and if I do, I don't share them. But when I start with a landscape painting, I normally don't add too much detail. Like for instance, with my flowers, I add a bit more detail sometimes. I like to paint mostly a realistic flower. But sometimes I don't have all the time and I just quickly jump in and I paint a small short video for me just for fun. So this is a little watercolor book that I bought recently. It's a little sketchbook. And I can't even tell you what brand it is because there's no name inside the book. I will have to check if I can find the little label that was around this book, but I just don't know where it is. I think I threw it away because I thought the name was in the book. But nevertheless, it is a lovely little sketchbook. The pages are perfect size for a tiny little sketch, quick sketch if you want to paint, for instance, a sunset or a sunrise. You get the point. It's something that you want to keep. So I just want to make sure that my washi tape's down, completely down, and so it's stuck down. Because if I do paint wet the whole page, some of the watercolor pigment will run underneath the beautiful tape that I've just put on there, and I want to keep the corners or a border around my painting. You don't have to do this, it is absolutely optional, but I want to keep a nice clean border. So I'm going to use my Schmincke watercolor set. This is a very dark green, and I'm just going to use a drop of that green because I'm going to use black. Now, normally I will mix my own black, but for this I'm going to use sepia because it's a quick sketch. But what I'm going to do is I'm not only going to use sepia, I'm going to use a little bit of French ultramarine mixed in this sepia mix with the green, just a touch. It just gives it a little bit of a interest. It just makes it a little bit more interesting. So the French ultramarine is part of my Schmincke set, and then the sepia is also part of this set. But then I just dip my brush in that green so it's not too green. I want more of a cool blue, if that makes sense. I'm just going to mix quite a dark mix, and this is Ollie. He came to say hi to me. So I'm just going to mix quite a bit of this color, and I want it very, very dark. So the mixture is between cream and butter for this section, but more with a little bit more water in. So I would say custard cream. Anyway, so I'm going to just draw a mountain. I know you're wagging your tail. You want food. It's too early, but I'll give you a snack later. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, Ollie, no. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the mountains. As you can see, they're overlapping there. And the mountain in the front is going to be much darker. And then as I move back, it will be lighter. So that looks like it's in a distant distance. So the darker mountain will look more closer to us. I wanted to draw in the wind turbines that's in this photo, but I decided against it. You will see I removed it. I'm going to leave it in there. It looks a bit weird. It looks like a windmill, but it's not a windmill. So I don't know why I just didn't rub the whole thing out there because I didn't paint it in. But anyway, I'm going to just leave it there for now. But you will see I remove it with my scrubber brush, and it actually removes quite quickly on this paper. So whatever type of paper this is, you can scrub a bit on it. And then I'm going to use my silver black velvet brush. It's the number 8. And I'm going to wet this section here with water. So I want quite a bit of water because I want my page to stay wet so that I have enough time to play around with the paint on the paper. I can move around, I can remove some, I can add some, I can just play around. So the paper might buckle, but for now I'm not going to worry too much by clamping it on the sides. So this is the dark mix that I'm looking for. So I could have mixed a bit more of the ultramarine in, but I didn't. And then I'm just going to quickly sweep it down so it's quite an even color right down to the bottom. We want the gradient mix of watercolors there, but I don't mind if there's a little bit of lines and detail because I want quite a little bit of texture on my painting. And I decided I need a bit more black because I'm going to use a lot more of this color and I want it to be dark. So this picture, when I took it, was in the morning, so the mountains are very, very dark. And I could have gone much thicker, but it's watercolor and I wanted to stay also a little bit more transparent. I don't want a thick gouache mix of black, if that makes sense, because otherwise I could have used my gouache black paints or I could have used acrylic, and I'm not going to do that because I'm painting with watercolors here. And then I just rinse my brush and I want to remove some of this mix right here because I don't like the fact that the mountain is just going straight up on that side there with just black. So I want to remove some of that color there. And now I'm going to wet the back mountain that I can see there. And I'm very careful not to wet the bottom layer because it is still wet, but if I do, it's fine. But you'll see I quickly pick up some of the pigment. And then I'm just going to drop in some of the color at the top there. Now this is going to be a much lighter mix. Like that. And then if a little bit of water run over this mountain at the bottom, I'm not going to worry too much about it. This is a quick sketch. I don't want to go over and over and remove and fix things all the time. I want to keep it quite nice and fun and quick. So it's just going to be quick. I notice there's a bit of beading on the tape, so I just take some tissue paper and I just remove the excess watercolor and pigment. Now for the next layer, I want to make sure that all of these bottom layers are dry, so I waited a few seconds for them to dry a little bit more. So now I'm going to mix the sky, the colors of the sky. Now this, I did not touch this photo. The real photo looks so unrealistic, but it was absolutely the most beautiful sunrise. Beautiful orange colors. We really have the most gorgeous sunrises and sunsets. But what I'm going to do is I also don't want it to run into this gray part now because I don't want to mess it up. So I decided I'm going to start from the top quickly, wet it quick, and then I'm going to just pick up some of that excess water that I have on the bottom there and just use some of that to move it into the top part on the paper there. Don't want puddles, but I want my paper to be quite wet. So that's the difference with wet on wet. You don't want too much water, but you want enough water so that you can play around for a long enough period to add in all of the details you want to add in and that you want to create, all of the little clouds and textures. Also mix a bit of yellow with this beautiful bright orange. And then I'm just going to drop my brush in, very careful at the bottom just in case some of it touched that grey mix. Even though it's dry, I'm just a bit concerned because I don't want that color to end up everywhere on my painting there. I just wiggle my brush a little bit. Quite a thick mix of paint, but I'm going to remove a lot of that now with my brush as soon as I get this beautiful color straight against that mountain because the sun is coming up. Where I live, the sun comes up over the mountains and then the sun sets over the sea. It's quite beautiful. And the dogs are barking and it's just fun. But you'll notice that I rinse my brush quite often. I do have tissue paper handy just in case so that I can remove some of the excess water and pigment very quickly. Because now is the very important part where I can create all of those beautiful, it really looked like someone painted the sky. So I'm trying to create that exactly. You'll notice that I move my brush around, I wiggle it to this side and that side to create all of those little beautiful brush strokes that you can see. And then I use a much lighter mix at the top there. And I'm going to drop in some of that blue color at the top. And you can just see how beautiful the pigment just flows everywhere. And then I rinse my brush and I just use the water on my brush to move the pigment around right at the top there. And this is where you really need a tissue paper just to soak up some of that excess pigment. Now this is completely dry and I think I want to darken the top part of this mountain. I'm happy with the sky for now. And again, much thicker consistency right now on this part, going right to the edge there. And then I wet my brush and I'm just moving some of that pigment around. Going with a darker mix now. Some water. And then I just swish the brush from left to right to create those layers of layers and layers, like different types of grays and blacks and blues. Now I'm going to add another mix of color here, slightly more blue in this mix and much more watery than the bottom layer. And I'm very careful not to remove the excess pigment. And this section I want a little bit darker. And yeah, you can play, you can just go crazy. You can add more mountains, you can, maybe make your sky more darker. You can just play around and add whatever you want to on your landscape painting. Okay, so that is dry now. I'm going to try and paint in that windmill, wind turbine. It's not a windmill, it's a wind turbine. But for some reason, I couldn't get it in. So I just deleted this section and you will see that you won't see that. Okay? You won't see me mess up that, but you will see that I removed it quite quickly. And sometimes when you scrub on the paper and there's like those woolly little bits on the paper, even on some expensive papers, it didn't happen on this paper because it's called pressed watercolor paper, and I also didn't scrub very hard. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use the same orange mix that I had on my paper here. Now that is just a very bright orange with some yellow mix in there. And I'm going to drop it in again on that section where I removed that paint that I painted in. And this is how you can fix a lot of your paintings because it's easy. You just use your scrubber brush, especially if your painting's a little bit wet still, it's easy to remove. But even if it's dry, you can still go back later and you can remove some of your paintings. So it's not a train smash if you have to do that either. Preferably you don't want to scrub on your paper all the time, but if you have to, then you just do it and you try and fix it, because I'm not gonna waste this whole painting that I painted for half an hour or an hour now, just to leave it there and to stare at it all the time. I wanted to fix it. So what I do now is I'm just going to drop in some of those little blue mixes on my plate there, which is a bit of like a grey mix. I want the clouds to look a bit more moody. So I'm just dropping it in on the section there. Now, like I say, you can go much darker. You can even drop a bit of pink. You can go a bit more red because the sunsets and sunrises are much more vivid this time of the year. And I just decided to drop in a little bit of these darker mixes in here. It will dry much lighter, so I might have to go back later and add in a bit more color. But I want to keep this painting under a certain amount of time, So I'm not going to stuff around and fuss too much over that. It's for me, it's for fun, and I just drop in a little bit of this color to create a little, like little cold clouds. When those clouds come over the sea, I know it's going to be chilly. There's a chill in the air, and there's a cold front moving in. So this is my finished painting. Now again, I can go back and add a lot more detail, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just remove the tape. Next time I can add more detail if I want to. I can play around with the clouds, but I'm happy with this. Yes, it's not perfect, but it was fun. And for me, it is perfectly fine. I like the way it turned out, and I'm not going to fuss over it too much. This is my finished painting. It took me literally half an hour to paint. I'm going to clean up my glass jars and edit the next video. But I hope that you will play around with your sunsets, sunrises, and this is the beautiful little sketchbook that I spoke about earlier. Beautiful rainbow, shiny colors in the front, and it is for me. It is a fun little book where no one will see my mistakes if I make mistakes, and even if I do make mistakes, it's fine. The thing is that I'm trying to learn how to paint beautiful landscapes. So I'm not going to, be upset if I can't create beautiful paintings yet. It will come and it will happen, like my flowers and my roses. I had to practice to get where I am right now. I hope you enjoyed this and I'll see you soon.